Hey folks, how you doing out there? New revelations on the chemical weapons cover up by the US, the EU. New revelations that have just come out. So I'm going to dig into those. And of course, I know it's not going to shock you. You will get none of that from the mainstream media. But on top of that, I'd like to, a little later, I'm going to make fun of these fucking clowns. CNN, John Bolton. We'll get into that in a moment, in a few minutes. I also, let's see, what else do I have? I have, 20 years ago this week, some horror went down that we'll be discussing. Also fresh attacks coming from the Department of Homeland Security on anybody who dares speak the truth. So I'll be going into that as well. All of that happening. Thank you for joining me. Hello, Roberta, Carrie, Robin, Kathy, Dancing with Mary Jane. Hello, everybody. Thanks for being here. I wasn't saying I'm dancing with Mary Jane. Not that I haven't in the past. I mean, in the past, it's just not my thing these days. But I'll more power to you. Welcome, everybody. Please make sure you put in a comment and a thumbs up and a subscribe. Or if you're at Rumble, click join or follow. Oh, follow. I think follow is the word. Do all of that. Thank you, folks. And let's begin to dig into the new revelations about this chemical weapons cover up. And yes, I know some of you are going, didn't we already do that? It's like, yeah, this, as with Russiagate, I did new episodes on how Russiagate has collapsed again and again and again, as if it couldn't collapse more. It actually has collapsed and then sunk deeper into the ground. It's like getting down to core Earth levels now. So, but yeah, more information comes out and it makes our mainstream media or our government look even more like clowns. And, you know, if I don't report on it, who the fuck is going to? So I have no choice. But this is new on top of new. There's a new report from the OPCW claiming the chemical weapons attack was real. And then there's a new report by Aaron Mate, debunking all of that, repudiating all of that. And but I wanted to show you this before we get into that, because this is just too beautiful. I like to start with when the opportunity presents itself. I like to start with some sort of video that we can all laugh at and say, "Oh, fuck those people." This is this is from the Miami Police Department. And I assume this is a few days old because I think they did this during Black History Month, which, oh, no, actually, it's not a few days. Black History Month just began, right? But anyway, maybe a few days old. But so this is what we call propaganda, right? Many of you have heard that term before. This is propaganda that was made to promote the police, to make them look good, to make them look like they care about the community, like they care about people, like they actually give a shit about your average citizen. And this is incredible. So I was alerted to this by Awkward, the rapper named Awkward, and one of the things he does is he does tremendous coverage on just calling the cops out for all their bullshit. So there's no real audio to it, so I'm not going to play that. It's just someone put a song over it. But this is them unveiling a new Miami Police Department police car. And what's the design on it? Yes. Black History Month, black fists in the air, African flag colors, the outline of Africa, Miami Police, Black History Month. This is the saddest sack of shit thing I have seen in a long time. An African cop car, so they can be beating the shit out of black people while they're like, but we can't look at the car. We care about Black Lives Matter, right? They might as well get like Black Lives Matter imprinted on their batons so that when they hold it against a guy's face, it will leave an imprint that says Black Lives Matter as they're beating his head in. I mean, this shit, This is like almost the literal representation of whoever said it, that fascism will come to America wrapped in the flag, right? Wrapped in the flag, holding the Bible. That's what this is. This is fascism with a paint job on the outside of a cop car that says Black Lives Matter. Want to see that again? And they did an unveiling ceremony so they could all stand there and be so proud of it and celebrate it and say, look, we care about black people. We're not a racist police force at all. Look at this car we got here. You can't be racist when you're driving around in this stupid fucking car. Oh, this shit. I mean, this totally is just fascism will come to America wrapped in the flag, holding the Bible, saying its prayers, telling you how much it cares about you. That's all this is. And this type of shit, this type of garbage, it's why people hate like wokeism and what it's come to represent in the liberal world. Now, there is a ton of false bullshit put out by the right wing about what, being woke is, or caring about racism in America, or caring about LGBTQ and all that stuff. There's tons of bullshit coming from the right wing on that. But on the other side of it is the reason that bullshit takes hold, gains traction so easily, is because of this bullshit, where people, and it's not just the cops, right? It's all of it, liberal America. And I wouldn't even call these cops, most cops are not liberal. Many of them are right wingers, but it's liberal America acting like racism a white supremacist foreign policy, a systemic racism can just continue completely unchecked while we wave a flag that says we care, while we have the cop cars painted in African colors, while we have a little Ukrainian ribbon on our hats, while we have a little I support the troops ribbon on our shirts, while we like all that bullshit that is completely meaningless. And yet on the ground, the actual day-to-day of your average human being doesn't change at all. The exploitation remains the same. The number of people locked up remains the same. The number of people that have their rights just stripped of them. The amount of surveillance that is done against us. The amount of exploitation on every level remains exactly the same. And that's just internally. I'm not even talking about foreign policy. The number of bombs being dropped remain the same. Actually, a little bit on that later. The amount of destruction of other countries remains the same. And meanwhile, don't worry, we've got Black History Month written on our cop cars. Don't worry, we have a black woman as vice president. Don't worry, we have a gay man as secretary of the transportation. Don't worry, we have a black man as the head of the Democrats in the House. That all makes it all right. No, it fucking doesn't. It doesn't change the policies at all. The harm that is being done continues at pace if it doesn't speed up. And this shit is that's about as elevated as you can get for this insane, completely fake, just nonsense garbage to designed to just make people think that that they care. They don't care. They don't care at all. Not at all. And yet they'll paint the cop car. All right. Well, I just wanted to throw that one out there. And let's move on to the latest revelations And these are important. This isn't just like oh my God, the U.S. lied about a chemical weapons test. Not just the U.S. but OPCW, etc. It's not just that. It's much larger than that, because it yet again is the U.S. attacking a sovereign nation, attacking another country, causing grave harm to so many people in Syria. And this has been going on for many years now, as we'll get into the details here in a second. But there's new information. Okay, so Duma, Syria. This is from Aaron Mate, and he's essentially just about the only journalist who's been like on this beat tirelessly. He's just about the only one. There's some who've done a little reporting on it. I have covered his stuff, etc. But he's the only one who's really been nailing away at this endlessly for years now. And so OPCW has released new information, a new report saying that a chemical weapons attack did in fact occur in Duma, Syria. Now, you'll recall that why is this important? Why was it important that for us to believe, for the American people to believe, for the world to believe that a chemical weapons attack happened in Duma, Syria? The reason it's important is because it's the justification we used during the Trump administration, that the U.S. government, the U.S. military used to justify so many things, to justify attacking Syria, literally bombing Syria, to justify the continued, it had been going on before that, but the continued funding and armoring of terrorists like al-Nusra, that is an al-Qaeda affiliate, al-Qaeda offshoot, to justify the incredibly harsh economic war we've had on Syria, which to this day means that 90% of Syrians are under the poverty line. 90% of Syrians are very poor, like scraping by. And of course, many of those are hungry. Many of those are dying. Kids dying from unclean water, kids dying from not having enough food, people dying from not having medical care, not having medicine. All of that is connected to economic war on Syria. So yes, the bombs being dropped is bad enough, but the economic war has killed far more than the bombs being dropped. Anyway, in the latest chapter of an international cover-up scandal, the Organization for the Prohibition of Chemical Weapons, OPCW, and something else I should mention here is that the OPCW was highly respected before this. Before this, it was actually an independent body that did not seem that influenced by the United States, by the U.S. empire. It actually seemed like they had the independence to say, no, nothing happened here, sorry. And this turned it around. This is the nail in the coffin of the OPCW as being respected for this. I see Holly in the chat has mentioned that John Pilger also done excellent work on this topic, the journalist John Pilger. Anyway, latest chapter, OPCW has directly accused Syria of committing a deadly chemical attack in the town of Duma. A new report from the Chemical Watchdogs Investigation and Identification Team, IIT, alleges that Syrian forces dropped 2 chlorine gas cylinders and killed 43 civilians on April 7th, 2018. The report received an immediate and unequivocal endorsement from the U.S. Department of State, the British Foreign Office, and the French Foreign Ministry, the diplomatic branches of the countries that rushed to bomb Syria in response to the events in Duma. OPCW's first report, finalized back in 2018 by a separate fact-finding mission, FFM, raised doubts that the chemical attack occurred in Duma. And here's something else you should know is I know that it's very tempting to go, well, Assad's a bad guy. There's been a civil war going on in Syria. He clearly hates and wants to kill the rebels. Many of them are like full-on Al-Qaeda level terrorists, but still he hates them and wants to kill them. So why would he not do something like this? I know it's tempting to be like, I don't believe Assad's a good guy, so why would he not do a chemical weapon attack? Well, here's why. Because up until the point, remember Obama, even back during Obama's administration, said, chemical weapons is a red line. If that happens, then it unleashes hell hath no fury, like the U.S. when another country uses chemical weapons. By the way, it is legal for us to use chemical weapons on our own people, hence tear gas used during protests, etc. So we can use it on our own people, just not other countries. But Obama said, "Oh, that's a red line that cannot be crossed." And Assad and the Syrian government, despite all of the war they were involved in, the civil war, the putting up with the U.S. funding and arming these moderate rebels who behead people in the streets, innocent people in the streets, despite all that, had not used chemical weapons because he knows the ramifications. He knew that if he just started fucking throwing chlorine everywhere, that the U.S. and other nations would jump on that to invade, to have harsher economic sanctions, all that shit. And so he wasn't crossing that line yet. And I don't remember whether it was the Duma attack. There's really two of these kind of ridiculous, like false flag chemical attacks. But I don't remember whether it was the Duma or one or the other one. But Trump said he was going to take the troops out of Syria, right? He announced that. He said, I'm withdrawing the troops from Syria, or the Pentagon troops from in and around Syria. And within 9 days of him saying that, the chemical weapons attack happens, forcing the U.S. military full on back into Syria. So this false flag was perfect. And most of you know, false flag means that it was done by the people who claim to be the victims of it in order, or allies, in order to justify a further attack, which is exactly what this is. Now there are two ways this could have happened. It could have to not be done by Assad or the Syrian government. One is that the U.S. legit helped set it up themselves, but another is just that the rebels, that some of which were funding and arming, said, "Oh, chemical weapons are the red line that gets the U.S. military full on into Syria, and we want that. Well, let's just set up a fucking chemical thing. Let's just go down to the lab and we'll dump some sarin on someone." So it doesn't necessarily have to be that the U.S. was actively involved in the setup, but what the U.S. and the OPCW clearly was involved in is, once it happened, they go, "Oh yeah, that's totally real." Well, actually, initially they raised doubts, but afterwards go, "Oh yeah, that's totally real, and so we need to invade." And by the way, the U.S. isn't it something like 10% of Syria that the U.S. still is technically holding on to? Most of it's the oil fields. So the OPCW's first report, finalized in 2018, raised doubts that the chemical attack occurred in Duma. It also left open the possibility that the incident was staged, presumably by insurgents, rebels, who controlled the area at the time. Leaked documents reveal that this original report was doctored. Leaked documents reveal he means doctored before it came out. So basically, sorry to stop and explain some of this, but he's saying that there was an initial report that was not released to the public that said, where these are experts, and like I said, OPCW used to be pretty independent. These are experts saying it doesn't seem that a chemical attack actually happened here. It seemed that it was likely staged. But that report was then doctored internally by someone and released by the OPCW saying, "Oh yeah, chemical weapons attack happened." So the original report was doctored and, along with other critical material, concealed from public view. The following month, a delegation of U.S. officials lobbied the fact-finding team to conclude that chlorine gas was used in Duma and that the Syrian government was responsible. A follow-up report released in 2019 omitted the original's key findings and endorsed the U.S.-led narrative. The manipulation of the Duma probe was challenged by OPCW inspectors who deployed to Syria for the mission. And so, like I said, Aaron Mate's been covering like the day-to-day of this for years. And ultimately, it was a trickle over several years, but ultimately 4 separate OPCW experts, people that work there, that were somehow involved in some level of this, came forward or leaked something to Aaron and said, yeah, our findings were changed, or I was pushed out when I raised questions, or what have you. But there's been 4 separate whistleblowers, and none of that has changed the mainstream media's view of this, which also shows the mainstream media and our government, of course, is eager to lie to you. And I know some of you go, oh, well, of course, but it's good to see the proof. It's good to see the evidence. The fact that they don't report any of this to you shows how much they want you to be fooled. They want you to be confused. They want you to think that the U.S. went in there for legitimate reasons, for legitimate chemical weapons reasons. And just another point about chemical weapons is, if you are the Assad government in Syria, and you are bombing in this war, like, innocent people are killed with bombs. War is disgusting. War is awful on all sides. So innocent people are killed with bombs. So it's like, you could do the same shit with bombs as you do with chemical weapons. Is it like Assad ran out of bombs and he needed to use the one weapon that would get the U.S. fully involved in his country? You think that's what happened? Like, none of it makes any logical sense. If you had any tactical mind at all, the idea that he would be like, yeah, I'll just use chlorine twice, or one was supposedly sarin, which, you know, the famous image of the CNN reporter sniffing a backpack, which had been, if it had been sarin, would have killed her instantly. And it's like that. Explain that to me. But okay, so let me get back to this. After burying the original findings and stonewalling calls for accountability, the OPCW has doubled down on the deception in Duma. The first gas cylinder was found in an apartment building and identified as location 2, where 43 dead bodies were filmed. The bodies were strewn about the floors below a gas cylinder that was positioned at the top of a crater on the roof. The cylinder, it's alleged, caused the, blah, 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 caused the fatalities. To assert that chlorine gas most definitely struck location 2, the IIT relies on finding what it calls a marker chemical, tetrachlorophenol. Yeah, they nailed it hard. Stuck the landing on that one, folks. Stuck the fucking landing. So they found that marker, the tetrachlorophenol, in a single sample of concrete debris. The presence of the TECP is the abbreviation for tetrachlorophenol. In that sample, the IIT states specifically points to the exposure to chlorine gas. Okay, so they found this sample of TECP in one sample of concrete debris outside of this location 2. Now, here are all the problems with what the OPCW is telling you. The supposedly incriminating concrete sample has appeared out of the blue. The IIT claims that the sample was received and analyzed by an OPCW designated laboratory in 2018. But the OPCW's fact-finding mission in March 2019 report, released more than 7 months later, makes no mention of this sample's existence. Nearly 4 years later, the Duma probe's most consequential sample is therefore being disclosed for the first time. This just happened. Think about the level of bullshit that they expect you to believe. They went there in 2018. They supposedly got this sample soon thereafter. They then put out a report 7 months later and don't mention it. Don't mention the key sample that proves that this was chlorine gas that killed these people and not something else. I mean, like, that'd be like if someone killed your friend and they couldn't find the killer, but then 4 years later you go, oh yeah, I have the knife and it belongs to his cousin. His cousin really hated him and used to come by a lot and wave a knife a lot. And I'm still holding on to the bloody knife. I've had it here. I just didn't know it was important. I didn't know. I've just been holding this bloody knife for 4 years, and I thought I'd give it to you now. See if does that do anything for you? I mean, just that. And he's got 5 other reasons why this is bullshit, but just that one. It's like enough. The OPCW, the supposedly most legitimate organization in the fucking world about use of chemical weapons, waits 4 years to reveal the key piece of evidence. Ta-da! Jesus Christ. Then he continues. The TECP containing sample was not collected by OPCW inspectors. It was instead collected by an unidentified third party in direct violation of the organization's chain of custody rules. Later in the article, I'm not going to show it, but later in the article, he reveals the rules from the OPCW that specifically say if a third party gives something to us and the chain of custody, meaning where this came from, can't be verified and hasn't been in our custody, then we won't take it. We won't accept it. We won't accept it for what it is. Because anyone can show up, and anyone who knows what the fuck TECP is could show up and say, hey, I just found this. Yeah, it shows 4 years later, shows what happened. Which makes perfect sense. I mean, if you're the OPCW, you can't just be like, anybody got a sample that they want to say came from the thing we're investigating? Anybody? Just check. You know what? We're putting on a call. Everybody check your pockets. And if you have anything you want to bring to us and just say it was at the site, please do. This was delivered to them by an unnamed third party 7 months after or months after. Like, this is nothing. OPCW might as well have just put out this report the other day saying, hey, we are a fucking ridiculous blowjob organization. We are a blow of a job organization. Like we don't have any credibility whatsoever. The C in OPCW used to stand for credibility, but we actually have added in a parenthetical next to that says no credibility. Like, I love that they're doing this because they think this makes their analysis of the chemical attack 4 years ago, 5 years ago. They think this makes their analysis more legit by saying, oh yeah, we found this sample we never told anyone about. But it actually just says we are a fucking laughingstock. A laughingstock. I mean, this would be like if Colin Powell came forward 4 years after we invaded Iraq and said, hey, we found them. We found the weapons of mass destruction. Yeah, we actually did. I'm sorry I didn't tell you about it for 4 years. I just wasn't thinking about it. Slipped my mind. And speaking of that, as long as we're on that topic, this is the 20-year anniversary. Where the fuck is it? There it is. This week is the 20-year anniversary of Mr. Colin Powell in front of the UN. In case, and this also has to do with the story we're talking about now, because if you don't think the US and the EU, etc., and the UK would lie about chemical weapons, I submit to you Exhibit A. 20 years ago today.
What we're giving you are facts and conclusions based on solid intelligence. Saddam Hussein has chemical weapons. Our conservative estimate is that Iraq today has a stockpile of between 100 and 500 tons of chemical weapons agent.
But it turned out, as we discovered later, that a lot of the sourcing that had been attested to by the intelligence community was wrong.
I want to tell you, they lied. Okay. They said there were weapons of mass destruction. There were none, and they knew there were none. There were no weapons of mass destruction.
Now, hilariously, that clip ruins their credibility by throwing Trump in there because Trump continued all of our war policies. I'm glad he said that in the debate. I'm glad Trump was willing to say public things like that. But, you know, I was going to say the same number of bombs fell under Trump as under previous administrations, but it was actually more. Obama's final year was 26,000 bombs dropped. Trump's first year was 40,000. So it's all the same shit. The war machine continues. So no reason to really include Trump in there. But anyway, it's been 20 years since we did that in order to invade Iraq, in order to kill and murder the people of Iraq. As we showed in the videos, we played it live on television, the bombing of Iraq, where we said it was shock and awe. Well, what was being bombed? The entire city, the entire infrastructure of Baghdad. These are innocent people. And the vast majority of them, even if you wanted to say every single person in the Iraqi army was an evildoer and needed to be killed, those bombs were not landing exclusively on the Iraqi army. In fact, most of them were not. So it's just just most horrific level of war crimes. And in case you're wondering, and I've been mentioning this number a lot lately because I feel like most people don't. I feel like this is another layer of reality you do not get from your average, not just mainstream media, but your average independent media as well. The estimates from the cost of war study, large-scale study of how many people have died from our various wars on terror, our war on terror that began 20 years ago, 6 million. 6 million people have died. 1 million of those roughly in Iraq have died from our war on terror. The combination of actual bombs falling and the destruction of the infrastructure, people not getting clean water, people dying of lack of food, lack of medicine, 6 million people because of this motherfucker's lies, along with the entire Bush administration, and then, of course, continued throughout the Obama administration, throughout the Trump administration, into the Biden administration. 6 million people. And that number increases every single day. Every single day, people continue to die in Syria, in Afghanistan, in Libya, in Iraq, due to our destruction there. And don't kid yourself that we're no longer harming Afghanistan. We have a full-on economic war going on against Afghanistan. We're killing more people in Afghanistan right now with our economic war than we did with bombs, at least last year and the year before. And yet we care about the women of Afghanistan, right? You remember that campaign? Lasted about 15 minutes. Liberals really cared about the women of Afghanistan for about 6 minutes. Maybe they painted a cop car, so it said women of Afghanistan on the side of it. All right, so just to remind you that the United States will lie endlessly to promote our wars and will lie about chemical weapons. And here we are pressuring the OPCW to again lie about chemical weapons and accepting their findings. The U.S. has already endorsed these findings. Okay, so I already went through two of the ways that this new proof of a chemical attack is laughable. Here's number 3. The third party, the mysterious unnamed third party that collected the sample, is in all likelihood the White Helmets. While claiming to be a neutral rescue organization, they are anything but. The White Helmets closely cooperate with anti-government insurgents in Syria and are funded by foreign states active in Syria's post-2011 proxy war, including the United States and the UK. The White Helmets have also been credibly accused of staging a chemical decontamination scene in a nearby hospital at the time of the alleged Duma attack. I vaguely remember that video at the time of the Duma attack. There was video put out by the White Helmets of people being washed off, and it was like, oh my God, chemical attack. And the reason that you don't see them touting that video anymore is because that video was proven to be completely false. So They can't tout that as evidence for this crime anymore. But now the White Helmets, most likely, was the third party that delivered this new evidence that just arrived on our doorstep after 4 years. You know how that is. If only Colin Powell knew this trick. If only Colin Powell knew that 4 years after the invasion of Iraq, he could just walk up and go, I found it. Found the proof right here. Yellow cake uranium right there. So then Mate continues, in violation of its own protocols, the OPCW gave full evidentiary status to this externally collected sample of uncertain origin. By contrast, a similar sample collected at the same Duma location by the organization's own inspectors was inexplicably disregarded and not even analyzed. Because the reason another sample was disregarded is because the other sample probably did not show this key TECP marker. So the other sample probably showed that there was not a chemical attack, and they can't have that. So they got rid of the other sample and found this new sample. The OPCW offers no explanation for these evidentiary breaches. And even if all of them are put to the side, the IIT's assertion that the sample reveals a chemical weapon smoking gun is contradicted by the OPCW's own findings. The IIT somehow overlooks that TECP was also found in a sample from a different location where no chlorine gas is reported to have been present. So there you have it. All of the ways this new revelation from the OPCW is ridiculous. But on top of that, this is the end of the OPCW. Like, this was up until Syria, the OPCW was largely respected and was largely considered unbiased and was largely considered uninfluenced by Western powers and U.S. empire. But now they've just proven every single day, hey, we are now doing the bidding of the U.S. empire. We will promote their wars, and we're doing it right now. And so, game over for the OPCW, which in many ways could be the goal of the U.S. I don't think it's the goal of the OPCW, but it could be the goal of the U.S. It's like, if there are independent, legitimate outlets telling you the truth of what's happening around the world, and the U.S. is trying to say the opposite, saying, oh, there was a chemical weapons attack, and they go, no, there wasn't, or we know that they did that, and another one, like, they don't want those organizations to exist. So in a way, they've just finished off, double tap to the forehead, the OPCW. And none of this will you get from your mainstream media, or really a lot of some independent media does a good job on this OPCW story, but many of them do not. All right, so I want to move on. Let's get into the latest. This is coming from the Department of Homeland Security. Attack on someone who, someone I'd call a friend, who is revealing the truth out there, revealing the truth to people about what's going on in the world, about the U.S. war machine, about corporate America and the harm that corporate America continues to do to so many of us. And he's being attacked by the Department of Homeland Security, CIA, etc. So let me get into that. By the way, folks, in a few minutes, we will move on to rumble.com/Lee Camp. That's rumble.com/Lee Camp, where this will continue in a few minutes. And it is free to watch and comment there. But okay, so this is... So first I have to tell you who the person is, Mike Papantonio. If you haven't heard of him, you probably have, but if you haven't heard of him, he is a very successful tort lawyer, a lawyer who represents class action lawsuits. And by successful, I mean that he wins large settlements, large verdicts for people who have been legitimately harmed by corporate America. And you remember there's been a lot push, mainly from the right wing, but, from fucking Democrats maybe as well, but mainly from the right wing, to decrease the ability of tort lawyers to go after tort lawyers, etc. And why is that? Well, because they are some of the few, most of them, there are some scam artists out there, but for the most part, they are some of the few that are actually holding corporate America accountable. There's no reason any of us should stand up for corporate America, should be like, oh, poor corporate America. Oh, they ain't having a tough time. Oh, man. Never. They own our fucking government. They largely own our justice system. So if someone is out there winning lawsuits that actually help average people, like Papantonio has won lawsuits that have to are connected to the opioid epidemic, the opioid crisis that has killed so many Americans, and Big Pharma was lying to us every step of the way, lying to doctors in order to continue the endless sale of opioids, telling people it wasn't addictive. So those are the type of lawsuits he wins. Unclean water, or people being harmed by various corporate malfeasance, but negligence is the nice way to say it. But normally it's intentional. Or at least they knew it was going on and they ignored it because making billions of dollars, right? Big Pharma making billions of dollars. Purdue Pharma that started the opioid epidemic, billions of dollars. And they don't care if bodies are piling up. And that's the type of thing Papantonio does. So he had a show on RT, as did I. One of the few places that would allow us to cover these stories, right? Allow us to go after corporate America. There's almost nowhere. I mean, there really is no national network, TV network, where you can go after corporate America on a regular basis. And so I just thought I'd play a 1-minute clip of Mike Papantonio to show you the type of things he does in case you're unfamiliar with his stuff, and just show you who he is and why they're going after him.
The United States has dropped an average of 46 bombs every day for the last 20 years. Now, I don't know. This story showed up in Salon.com. Again, no mention of it in corporate media. Why? Because if you turn on MSNBC or you turn on CNN or Fox News, they're going to be having, you'll see advertisements by Raytheon, advertisements by the big weapons industry. Are you going to go out and buy a missile? No. Why are they advertising? Why are they going to MSNBC and running all those ads? For access. So nobody will talk about the kind of thing we're going to talk about right now.
By the way, I think he got that line from me, but I am more than, because I said that line when I interviewed him about how, why are they advertising? Is it because they think grandma in Poughkeepsie is going to run and buy a fucking F-35? No, it's because they want to own these networks. If they're spending not billions, but millions of dollars on ads at CNN, do you think CNN's going to go after Raytheon? Fucking no. They just want to own the network, which is essentially what they do. But anyway, I am more than happy to donate that line to him because I think the more people that hear that view or that idea, and it's also possible I've got my head up my ass, and he'd been saying that line for years. But anyway,
pick the story
up.
Yeah,
this is truly terrifying to think about. But as you said, 46 bombs per day over the last 20 years. And of course, a lot of that happened, in the Iraq War and Afghanistan, but it hasn't ended, right? We're not at the point where we're not dropping any bombs per day now.
Right.
Bombs get dropped by the United States every single day, not just on average, but every day we're bombing somebody somewhere for whatever reason they've come up with that day.
Okay, well, what I think is important about this is this report that is supposed to come out regularly. This is supposed to be a regular report, has been stifled for 21 months.
Yeah.
Now,
okay. Obviously important coverage. Incredibly important coverage. And Papantonio is one of the few doing this type of thing. And he also, and as he mentioned about Raytheon, about weapons contractors, corporate America, and this is coming from somebody who understands corporate America better than most. This is coming from somebody who literally studies the law and knows what corporate America is up to. And that's why he's dangerous. And so now he's being attacked mainly by this woman who currently works for the Department of Homeland Security. Let me see if I can find Suzanne Spalding, who senior advisor for Homeland Security and director of the Defending Democratic Institutions Project at the Center for Strategic and International Studies, CSIS. And if you go a little down, so she's Department of Homeland Security, but if you go a little down in her bio here, you get to, she also spent 6 years at the fucking CIA. Okay, so you've got a CIA lady, CIA and DHS lady, who's calling Papantonio out for lying about our justice system. He's acting like it's rigged. He's acting like it's not legitimate, like corporate America somehow is influencing our justice system. I'm going to show you exactly what she said, and she's been continuing to promote this article. Let's see here. So she was on a panel at Duke University Law School, and let's see here, about judicial independence, and they brought her on as a expert, right? Because, you know, whenever you want to listen to somebody who can really tell you how stuff works and is really going to give you just the honest to God truth and isn't going to bullshit you in any way, you go to the CIA, right? They're always telling you the truth. Oh man, does the CIA, they are just honest day in and day out. I wish for once I could catch the CIA in a lie, just for once. But you know, they just God, they give you the truth, man. By the way, I wanted to say, I'm about to tell you why. I wanted to say they give you the solid dick. And here's why. And this is what you turn to me for. You are not going to get this type of information from any other news source. Back in the late 40s, early 50s, solid dick used to mean the real truth. So here's a caption from a Marvel comic with Iron Man saying to Captain America, maybe what you need is some solid dick from the Iron Man. And Captain America going, maybe I do. Maybe I do. Because apparently the expression solid dick actually meant to tell the truth. And really, we need to bring that back. I mean, we honestly need to bring that back. So my point was just, if you want some solid dick, you go to the CIA, because they're going to tell you the truth, man. That CIA, they will give you the solid dick. All right. Of course, I'm kidding. And the CIA lies to us constantly. Their job is to lie to us. At no point is their job to tell us the truth. If they happen to be telling us the truth, that's like an exception. It's like a happy coincidence. That's all it is. Oh, and by the way, if anyone's curious, that was a legit caption I just showed. I mean, a legit comic book I just showed you. I didn't fake that up or anything. That was a real Marvel comic. Okay. Anyway, because that would be a weird thing to fake. So, and as many of you know, Mike Pompeo, former head of the CIA, said in front of a live audience, he said, at the CIA, we lied, cheated, stole. We had whole classes on how to lie, cheat, and steal. And most of you are like, yeah. But amazingly, there are people out there, most of America, that are still willing to have CIA agents and DHS undersecretaries on panels to tell you the truth. What the flying fuck is going on? Why would you ever believe this lady, Susan Spalding, or any other current CIA person? Like, unless they're a whistleblower that went to jail for revealing what the CIA was doing, like John Kiriakou, there is no reason you should ever believe anything the CIA, any of our intelligence, FBI, really any of our government, because our government is proven, as I just showed with Colin Powell, our government proved to lie endlessly. So why would you believe any of them? It blows my mind that people still do. But all right, this is from Here it is. Judicial independence threats foreign and domestic. And this is a few years ago, but she's been reposting this and continuing to push it. So here she is on this panel. She's brought on as an expert about the threats to our legal system. And she says, today I'll discuss what I've been doing at the Center for Strategic and International Studies, where I lead the Defending Democratic Institutions Project. Just that name. You just hear that name and you go, oh, some shit is up. Some shit is up. My work there really grew out of my experience at the Department of Homeland Security and CIA, she whispers, where I had the honor and privilege of leading the men and women who protect our nation's critical infrastructure from physical and cyber attacks. Our work is largely focused on Russian information operations. So, as I've done multiple live streams in the past 2 weeks on continued revelations of how much of this Russian misinformation was lies. I mean, it just has all fallen apart. Internal Twitter emails, which we can now see. We can now see the tops of Twitter 2 and 4 years ago, mainly 4 years ago. We can now see internally that they were saying, this is all bullshit. There's no Russian misinformation campaign. And yet here she is pushing this garbage. And she says, we see this time and again. Oh, inauthentic accounts, blah, blah, Twitter bots. She's saying, oh, yeah, all that's totally real by Russia. She says, we see this time and again where these fake Russian accounts try to turn people out on the streets. Yeah, time and again. You know, all those protests that were created by Russian disinformation, right? You know, every time you see people marching by your house, they were always sent there by Russia, right? Putin's military advisor wrote a document years ago about tapping into the protest potential of the population. Right. In 2018, we found some 11 million tweets, she says. We found some 11 million tweets and a number of Facebook posts that Twitter had attributed to Russia. Now, 2 things. One is, no, you fucking didn't. Because Twitter internally was saying this is all bullshit. So we know that's fake. But even if you did find 11 million tweets by Russians, guess what? Russia's a country. Russia has a lot of people. Some of them tweet. Gasp. Oh my God. Jesus Christ, what are we going to do? RT has had, so then she gets into how RT, the channel that I used to work for, it was really RT America, but which literally is a different company, well, was a different company. U.S. sanctions have shut it down. You guys know that. It's scrolling across the bottom of the screen right now. But RT America was a separate company. Yes, it was still connected to RT. It was still funded by Russia. However, as I've said many times, and as most of you know, I was never told to say anything, to not say anything. The reason I was there was because I was completely and utterly uncensored. It is unheard of on American television to be uncensored at the level I was. I could go against corporate America every single day. And it's the reason I'm not on television now, because it doesn't matter how successful my show, Redacted Tonight, was. The moment you're no longer on the one channel that allows that kind of talk, there's no other channel to pick you up. There's no other channel to go, oh, now we want him. That doesn't happen because there's nowhere else that allows that level of non-censorship. So that level of freedom. Hilariously, right? This is America, land of the free, right? Freedom of speech, right? Not so much. Anyway, she continues. She starts out by saying RT has had to register as a foreign agent. Well, yeah, that was a bullshit thing that the Justice Department did to basically just continue finding ways to fucking go at Russia. That was their the foreign agent registry was designed for companies lobbying on behalf of foreign governments. RT is a TV channel, and at no point, or was a TV channel, at no point had a TV channel or a press outlet, Canadian, CBC, British, BBC, CGTN, Chinese, RT, none of them, PBS for that fucking matter, None of them had ever had to register as a foreign agent because that wasn't what it was for. It wasn't meant to say media outlets or lobbying on behalf of a foreign government. And by the way, the organization that should actually have to do it, that should actually be the label attributed to them, AIPAC, the literal lobby to lobby on behalf of Israel. And yet, AIPAC has never had to register as a foreign agent. But of course they're registering on behalf of Israel. That's the whole point of the foreign agent registry. Okay, anyway. She goes, RT as a foreign agent is a number of programs that go after the justice system. Now just think of that sentence. Is there any reason to go after our justice system? Is there any reason to maybe criticize our justice? No, not at all, right? Justice system is perfect. We don't. Every one of you listening right now, watching, you all agree, right? Justice Department, I mean, not Justice Department, the justice system, our entire justice system, nothing to criticize, right? She says they go after our justice system. Its most prominent is America's Lawyer, a weekly program on RT. It's hosted by a Pensacola trial attorney, Mike Papantonio. His weekly theme is that the justice system in the United States is broken. What? What a liar. I can't believe he said our justice system is broken. I feel like it works perfectly. Jesus Christ. Anyway, his weekly theme is the justice system in the United States is broken, that corporations and corrupt politicians have taken control and have turned the once impartial judiciary into a tool for the elite to use for their own gain. All of you watching right now, does that not sound fucking true? Is that not accurate? Let me ask you this. How many higher ups at corporate America have you heard of going to prison? Blah. Even the Sacklers, the heads of Purdue Pharma, yes, they had to pay fines and they lost their company, but are they in prison right now? They have killed hundreds of thousands of Americans. How many people do you have to kill to actually go to prison? Well, if you're in corporate America, if you're rich, doesn't matter. Kill as many as you want. Anyway, so here she is going after Mike Papantonio. She's continued to tweet this article and say these type of things. And, a lot of you watching right now stood up for me when I was being attacked. I've had attack pieces done about me in the New York Times, Cover the Arts section, NPR's Weekend Edition, and then all those other bullshit outlets, Daily Beast and that shit. And of course, had the TV show cancel, YouTube page cancel, all that shit. And many of you stood up for me. Many of you have been there to say this is bullshit and we shouldn't stand for this. So that's what I'm doing for Mike Papantonio right now. Because it's the same thing happening to him. And, they try and find different ways to go after somebody, to go after various programs, to go after various channels. One way was to get RT canceled so that there was no outlet, which they succeeded in. Another is to just heavily criticize it, which is what went on for years before they deleted RT. It was just to make us seem like we were fucking lying or we were censored or we were told to say things, which I never was. I can guarantee you Mike Papantonio wasn't either. Absolutely not. So there's various ways to do it. Another is to splinter the people that would be natural allies. So you find groups that are on the anti-war movement and you say, oh, you should hate that one or you hate that one. So they try and splinter these things up. There's a lot that is done to try and to break us apart. Another one was to go after places that people went after RT was gone. So, I went to Patreon, but then I'm now at Locals, which by the way, click the join button if you're on Rumble and you can join up at Locals. You can also just go to leecamp.net if you're not watching on Rumble. And by the way, right now I'm going to switch fully to rumble.com/leecamp. So join me over there. It's free to come over there, free to join me. Rumble.com/leecamp. I'm going to continue on this topic, but I'm also going to play that John Bolton clip and show you CNN's hysteria, lies, bullshit, all of it about the China balloon fucking freak out. I know I wasn't even going to cover that story, but this just gets to be too much, and I have to call these idiots out. I can't just sit around and not do it. So rumble.com/LeeCam.